Hi, so this is Miss Match again, and allow me to discuss with you the second topic, which is self in sociological perspective. In the previous chapter, you were invited to reflect on the question, Who am I? And find answers to the question just as the philosophers did. Well, it's a very important question that we all need to ask ourselves if we're ever going to discover our true potentials and purposes in life. We can admit that it is not an easy question at all. So, maybe one can start with simple questions such as who decides what you wear in the morning, how do you style yourself, or how do you present yourself on social media, or who chose your career for you. In becoming who you are and in deciding what you do you follow your own choice? Which is your choice and which is not? Are you making the best possible choices for yourself or are you just pleasing everyone but yourself? With the easy access to social media where we become easily updated with the new beauty trends and new lifestyles, how easily do you jump on the bandwagon? Whose life are you living? Is it your own or is it what society expects of you? There is a statement which says that a person's self and personality comes to resemble his or her environment. So, in this particular topic, we will try to look on how our environment and society contribute to molding and shaping ourselves. We'll try to see the different sociological theories and perspectives and their views about the development of self. So today we are to look at how the field of sociology conceptualized self. What then is sociology? Sociology is a social science that studies human societies, their interactions, and the processes that preserve and change them. The sociological theories of the self attempt to explain how social processes such as socialization influence the development of the self. Sociologists believe that the self is socially constructed in the sense that it is shaped through interaction with other people. And as with socialization in general, we humans are not passive participants naman in this process, as we have a powerful influence over how this process and its consequences develop. But we cannot deny the influence of people around us, of the society in which we live in. Kaya, it's important, it's essential to always go through the process of self-awareness. Ano ba yung self-awareness? Having self-awareness is having a clear perception of your personality, your strengths, your weaknesses, your thoughts, your beliefs, your motivations, your emotions. And there are two types of the self that we can be aware of. Meron tayong private self, and we also have public self. Our private self is about the internal standards that we have. Ito yung mga thoughts that we keep in private, the feelings that we keep to ourselves. This is who we are when no one else is around, where where no any other people have access but us. Our public self naman is how we present ourselves to others. And how we do it is commonly geared toward having a good presentation of ourselves to others. Ngayon, self-awareness may be positive and negative depending on the circumstances and the next course of action that we do. Self-awareness in general can be positive kasi it can keep us from doing dangerous. Kapag aware tayo, it reminds us of the things that we should do. For instance, kapag may exam tayo, kapag we're spending too much time na on social media, if we are aware nililimit natin yung mga bagay na pwedeng maging dangerous for us. However, in other instances, it can be too much that we are concerned about being observed and criticized by others. And this is known as being too self-conscious. And this can lead to a tendency to make critical judgments about oneself kasi we try to attune ourselves with the wants of others. Now, one of the most important sociological approaches to the self, to understanding the self, was developed by Charles Cooley. So, he conceptualized the idea of the looking glass self. Ano ba yung looking glass self? So, this concept states that part of how we see ourselves comes from our perception of how others see us. So, we might feel na we have a great sense of humor, for example, because others have told us, or they laugh when we say our jokes. So, this looking glass self asserts na people around us are like our mirrors in the sense that their comments, how they treat us, reflect our own worth and personality, and that our self concepts are often quite similar to the views that others have of us. Now, looking glass self is also a process that comprises of three phases. So, initially, it's about how we imagine we appear to be to others. Then following this is how we imagine others will judge us by our appearance. And in the last phase happens the development of the emotional reaction based on how one perceives others' judgment. However, this is not an objective process. This is subjective and does not always reflect accuracy or reality. How others see us does not reflect reality. But whether we think others views us positively or not will have great impact on how we will evaluate ourselves or our perceptions of our self-worth. This is what we call self-esteem. So self-esteem is not automatically good. That's why self-esteem can be categorized into two. Meron tayong tinatawag na high self-esteem and meron tayong low self-esteem. But too much high self-esteem can lead to a negative thing, which is when one becomes a narcissist, na ang mundo niya ay umiikot sa kanyang sarili lamang. Ngayon, self-esteem is influenced by the process of our interactions with others, how we feel we are treated. But this does not generalize to all people. Only the appraisals of those important to us can greatly influence our self-esteem. But there are other ways that we can impact our own self-esteem. Bukod sa paano natin nakikita na itreat tayo ng iba, it is also influenced through the process of social comparison. Social comparison theory assumes that we learn about ourselves and the appropriateness of our actions by comparing aspects of ourselves with other people. So, tayo mismo, kinukumpara natin ang sarili natin sa ibang tao. And there are two kinds of social comparison. We have downward social comparison, and we also have upward social comparison. When we start comparing ourselves to those who we think are inferior than us or who are worse off than us, then we're doing a downward social comparison. And for some people, it helps raise their self-esteem. Kasi nakikita nila na nakakahigit sila sa iba. The other type of social comparison is the upward social comparison. So it is comparing yourself to those who are better off than you, to those who you think are superior than you. And to some people, this is motivating kasi mas lalo nilang napupush ang sarili nila to be better. But either of these two could have a benefit or disadvantage depending on the person. But the most important thing is to compare yourself to who you were before para makita mo if there is improvement. Now, aside from Cooley, another famous sociologist who contributed in developing an understanding of the self is George Herbert Mead. So, in his theory called social behaviorism, he agreed that we develop ourselves through interactions with other people, and it follows a process. This process involves a social experience. Such experience consists of the use of language or exchange of symbols to convey meaning. And to understand that meaning, we have to know others' intentions by imagining the situation from their perspectives or by understanding the role of others. George Herbert Mead also posited the idea na meron daw tayong tinatawag na active self, which is the I, and the objective self, which is the me. The I self is active because it is the one that initiates the action. Kaya nga, in the sentence that we construct, sabihin natin, I do this, I'm going there, I wanna do it, because it is the I that initiates the action. The me self, on the other hand, is dependent on how others respond. Aside from these ideas, George Herbert Mead also developed also conceptualized the idea that there are stages of development of self-concept, and there are three. First is preparatory stage that begins at 1 year to 2 years. So here, as a child, we respond through mere imitation. We just simply imitate without knowing the meaning of the actions of those people around us. Following preparatory stage is the play stage that begins from age 3 to 5. Here, we take the roles of our significant others or the people who are close to us or those who have strong influence over us. So, this stage is characterized by pretend play. In this process of make-believe stage, children internalize the values and attitudes and eventually incorporate them with their own. The last stage is the game stage. So this is the final stage where children begin to consider their role by taking into consideration the generalized others. Or pag sinabing generalized others, this is the society and their expectations of us. Ngayon, in relation to roles that we take, a Canadian sociologist named Irving Goffman said that people live their lives much like actors performing on a stage. Meron siyang theory na tinatawag na dramaturgical analysis. In this theory, he gave the idea that people's day-to-day lives can be understood as resembling performers in action on a theater stage. That as we present ourselves in various situations, para tayong actors who put on performances for our audience. And we behave differently from situation to situation. We are like actors who behave by following a script that we learned pwedeng from our parents, from our teachers, or from our friends. And according to him, just like life in a theater stage, there's actually a front stage and also a backstage, where in the front stage, we present ourselves the way others expect us to be. And in the backstage, where there is no audience, we reveal who we really are. Kaya nga, Irving Goffman is also known for the concept of impression management. We live by impression management according to him. Now we consciously attempt to influence the perceptions of other people or the objects or events around or the events by regulating our own actions. But it is important to remember that we are not always passive participants in the process of socialization. Each person, each of us, a distinct and coherent being. Of course, we would always create good or bad impressions to people around. But at the end of the day, we have the power over which words will be marked wrong or untrue to us. At the end of the day, while we cannot control how others will respond to us or how they think and feel about us, we can control our own. And the inner peace always lies within us, and it begins the moment we choose not to allow another person or event to control our thoughts and emotions. Ngayon, from the aforementioned perspectives and conceptualizations of the different famous sociologists, one cannot really deny how influential society is to the development of self. Mga tao around us, the society, laging may impact. And it is very apparent how gender and gender roles have become socially constructed. So before we delve on this, let's distinguish first between gender and sex, gender identity, and sexual orientation. So, when we talk about the biological nature that differentiates men from women, we're talking about sex. But if we're talking about what differ men and women in terms of social and cultural characteristics, we're talking about gender. Kapag sinabi naman natin gender identity, it is referred to as the extent to which a person identifies him or herself as being masculine or feminine. While sexual orientation refers to a person's sexual or emotional attraction to a particular sex. And sexual orientation is typically divided into four categories. Meron tinatawag na heterosexuality, which is the attraction to individuals of the opposite sex, or homosexuality, which is the attraction to individuals of one sex. There is bisexuality, which is the attraction to individuals of either sex, and asexuality or no attraction to either sex. Ngayon again, we cannot deny the fact that society has put males and females into roles na tinatawag nating gender roles. And there are also stereotypes which influence men and women in almost every aspect of life. Katulad nga nung where boys were raised to be providers, girls were raised to be submissive or passive or to cater to a man's needs. And this has led to expectations where the man always pays the bills purely because he is a male. And also this is the reason why single women are constantly under pressure to find a husband kasi to provide for her or to validate her existence as a woman. Kaya nga, in one quotation that I've read, sabi dito, the problem with gender role is that it prescribes how we should be rather than recognizing how we are. Ngayon, I'd like to invite you to think back to your childhood. Kasi, how we see or perceive ourselves, yung gender identity na meron tayo, it mostly originated in how we were treated back to our childhood days. Ngayon, I'd like you to think back to your childhood. How gendered were the toys and activities available to you at that time, if you could still recall? Do you remember gender expectations being conveyed through the approval or disapproval of your choices? What do you think can be done to lessen the impact of this gender social expectations and stereotypes? So you're not to write this or submit this. I just want you to think about this and reflect on your own. And maybe this could influence how you would also treat others around you, especially children who are just starting to develop their own gender identity. So, this ends my discussion. Thank you so much for listening. Please do not please do not forget to answer or to do your activity and quiz on your LMS account. Have a good day and thank you.